Shalom, everyone, and welcome to Coffee and Connection. Let me just make sure I say the right week because I don't want to mess this up. Week 154. Week 154. Thank you for being here with all of me. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you to all of you for being here with me. Um, Sorry about that. I don't know why that was such a tongue twister. And thank you for being here with me on this change in day. I actually got to take a few days to just kind of rejuvenate. And it was actually a very powerful experience and it kind of I'm going to use it as part of what I want to talk about for today's topic, which is a really important topic of how do we deal with our challenges when we don't fully control them, right? So we talk about all the time that the most important way to deal with challenges is to take responsibility for things, right? Is to look to see what can I do about it. That's basically what we're about here, right? That's what we're always talking about. And we have been taking a few weeks, or we're going to take a few weeks to really look at this question of like, what do we do when the challenges are very big? They're very all encompassing, right? So we talked about now I'm losing for a moment what exactly we talked about last week. We talked about not getting lost in them, right? We talked about being able to um to look at the challenges in a way of like saying what steps can I take? What am I able to do about it? And we want to be careful when we're in challenges to not just place the blame on others. We always want to look to see what responsibility can I take. And the truth is, and that's very, the reality is that a lot of our challenges are outside of our control. There are so many pieces of it that are outside of our control. And what do we do in those cases? What do we do when it's not just about, okay, I'm having this issue and okay, this is my piece of responsibility and let me stay in my corner, let me work on my issues, which is a very important part of dealing with challenges, 100%. But what about when our challenges are really not about us? They're not about us. They're not about who you're being. They're not about the choices that you're making. And so what I want to talk about today, in first of all, in no way minimizing the challenge. The challenges are real, right? Our challenges can be very, very real. It's not like we could just say, oh, let's just be positive about it. Oh, let's take our own responsibility. Oh, let's not focus on it. Because we're talking very often, there are big issues that are not fully in our control, whether it's something that has to do with somebody not being the way, not like making difficult choices in their lives that are painful for us. And so, or whether it's issues of health, right? People shared with me health issues that they're having, whether it's issues in the world, right? We're dealing with major current events, major issues, major traumas, major stress that is not in our control. We can't just decide, I don't think anyone listening to this is in a place to say, let's just end the war. We could just bring home all the soldiers and all the hostages and, end anti-Semitism and create world peace. Like we can each do our little part for it, right? But like the issue today is not just going away. And so what I want to talk about today is kind of like a 3-step process that we can take in dealing with them. And I'm going to do it from like what's going to feel like the least I don't know if the right word is powerful, or what's going to seem like the most superficial to the most powerful. And I'm going to do that on purpose because each one is going to give strength and ability to do the more real next step. Okay. And you'll see what I mean going forward. So, the first step when we're dealing with any challenge, any issue that you have that feels really outside of your control. And by the way, this applies even if it's something that you feel is partly like you can take your piece in it, like it's a difficult relationship, a relationship with a child, your husband, a family member, a work issue. whether even if some of it's in your control, you still may feel like there's a huge piece of it that is like about somebody else, about how someone else is being, or it may be something that feels completely out of your control, like feeling like you've done everything you can to be healthy and then being met with a health struggle, God forbid, or whether it's, you're doing everything you can, thinking about the war every day and davening and learning and doing things and still feeling like there's still so much pain that's going on from it. Whatever the situation is, the first step, the first thing that we can do is, and I know it can almost sound superficial, and it really is the first step, is looking to see how can I give myself strength to deal with this? How can I give myself strength? Now, when you're asking that question, how can I give myself strength? You're not saying, okay, well, how can I make myself feel good so that I forget about it? That just doesn't work, right? We can't. I remember once going through a very big challenge, a very big issue I was dealing with, a lot of pain, weeks of pain, like real, like gut wrenching, like I felt like I was going to throw up, like daily, not because I needed to throw up, but just I felt like my guts were like totally, it was so painful what I was dealing with. And I remember thinking that I could kind of like outshop it or out treat myself to it. Like, well, let me go to the mall and buy myself something nice and get myself a treat and an iced coffee, and I'll walk around and I'll take time for myself and I'll sit in a park, and none of it helped, right? Like none of it got rid of the gut wrenching pain that I was dealing with. None of it. None of it. We can't self care ourselves out of a difficult situation. We can look to see how can I give myself strength. So while that trip to the mall didn't fix the problem or make the pain go away, it did give me strength to deal with it. It did give me some moments to myself to kind of regroup and to kind of like tune back into myself, kind of away from the problem. We were talking about on the coaching call that we just had, that sometimes when you're dealing with an issue, it starts to take over your whole life. And when you deal with something else outside of it, it can give you some perspective. It can help you like realize that this is an issue. It may be a big issue, but it doesn't have to take over, and it can help you tune back into other parts of your life. So, okay, what am I in the mood for? What do I like here? What feels good? How can I take some time to myself? It can give you strength. And it is important to give ourselves strength, because if we don't have strength, we don't have it's so it sounds so simple, but we have to remind ourselves of this sometimes. If we don't give ourselves strength, we don't have the strength to deal with the issue. We don't have what to give. If we are, you know, telling ourselves, I just have to say Tehillim all day, and then you're saying Tehillim to the point where you're so burned out, it could get to a point where you can't say another parak of Tehillim, or where you just find like you're saying Tehillim, but you're yelling at everybody around you, or you're just like, then you just collapse and you can't do anything else that needs to get done. So, I remember recently, I was feeling very, very like just like overwhelmed with like all the davening that I was doing. And I was really wondering, I was going to have a conversation with my Rebbitzin about like, should I do less? Like, I feel like I can't, but I'm also feeling very overwhelmed by it. And two things happened. Number one is that I was in a shir that she was giving, and she was talking about like the power of tefillah, and how like right now, like that's what we have. We have that power of tefillah. And it was the way that she said it and connected to something that like really helped me feel reconnected to it. and help me with that burnt out feeling. And then afterwards, I spoke to her and I said, "I'm so glad that you said that in the shir. It wasn't a shir on tefillah; it was a shir on Sefer Shmuel. And I'm so glad that you said that because I was feeling burnt out about my tefillah." And she said, "You can't stop. Like you can't stop. You have to keep davening. We have to keep davening." And so so having that conversation was also very helpful, to realize each of our power of tefillah. But then I also said to myself, okay, Hannah, how are you feeling most burnt out? What can you do so that you don't get back there, even if you're not feeling it this moment? And so I started to remember about, like, are there things, can I do some of it earlier in the day? Can I not leave it all till more to the end of the day so that then I'm tired and I have still all my davening to do? So I could also practically kind of look to see how can I do it differently, right? So when we have, like, any way that we can give ourselves strength is so important, whether it's taking care of ourselves, right? Whether it's physically, emotionally, spiritually, building ourselves up to give us the strength. Again, it's not going to make the issue go away, but it's only when we have that strength that we can keep moving forward. We can take the next step. We can continue doing whatever it is that needs to be done or that we want to do, or that being who we want to be in dealing with the situation. That's number one. Give ourselves strength. Say, what can I do to give myself strength? And it may be davening, it may be going for a walk, it may be giving yourself some comedic relief, it may be talking to a friend, it may be taking a nap, it may be eating something you enjoy, eating something healthy, doing some exercise, going on, doing anything, reading a book. It could be a million things, but check in with yourself. Not necessarily like, it's not necessarily the same as like your self care. It may be what is going to actually, it may be connected, but it's what will give me strength. And, again, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, we can even ask ourselves all of those things. What do I need emotionally, spiritually, and physically so that we don't negate any of them? Okay. That's the first and foremost. And that, on the one hand, is the most superficial. On the other hand, is going to actually give us the strength to do the deeper things that we can do. So the second step, the second stage, which is kind of deeper, is looking at our stories. When I asked you to share with me this week some of the struggles that you're experiencing that feel outside of your control, what I heard in the emails, and I thank you, everyone who sent to me, what I heard is not just the struggle itself that's creating the pain. And I invite you to all check in with yourself. What could also be creating so much pain is what we're making the struggle mean. Maybe you're blaming yourself for your struggle. Maybe there's a part of you that's saying it shouldn't be this way. Maybe there's a piece of you that's saying it's because it's this person's fault. Maybe there's a part of you that is believing that it's, like you're feeling guilty about it, or you're feeling like you should have done something different, or it shouldn't be like this, or someone else shouldn't have done that. These may all sound the same to you. It could be that you're connecting to one of them and not to others. Looking at our stories, right? What am I making this mean? Is very important. It's very important because, first of all, whatever you're making it mean is probably draining your strength. And it also keeps you from putting your energy into something that's going to actually be productive. Is that resonating? It's, and I'll give just like a very clear example is like if I spend my time stressing about, well, why is the government making these decisions? Or I even go on a more spiritual route and say, well, we need unity, but these people aren't being unified. I'm I'm putting all my energy into blaming other people. And what's going to be most productive and going to actually could give me strength is to say, okay, what can I do? Because here's the irony: as much as these things may be outside of our control, we always feel the most drained when we're focused on things that are not in our control because there's nothing we can do about it. And the most strength comes from saying, what is in my control? Now, this is not the same as what's my fault. What's my fault is draining, as opposed, and it's a story as if it's anyone's fault, that most of these things that happen are it's no one's fault, even if you could put it on someone. It's not like they, they must have thought that they must, usually everyone's doing the best they can and they made a bad choice or they made a mistake, or they really doesn't need to get our energy to focus on that. So rather than focusing on other people or blame or shame or, faults, to focus on, when we can let go of that, we can focus on, what can I do? What can I do? Not what was my fault. That's a story we want to work through. Because once we work on that, we can look at, what can I do? What can I do? That actually gives us strength. And then we can go to the third stage, which is looking for acceptance versus, and instead of resistance. This is really the deepest stage, and it's the most freeing in many ways. See, when we think about acceptance, the reason we usually resist acceptance, which is funny because acceptance is the opposite of resistance, we resist acceptance because we think acceptance means I accept, like it's okay. I give up, even. People either think of acceptance as I give up, or I I see this as something I'm deserving of, or I stop like I give like I just I give up. It is really like, and that's not what acceptance is. Acceptance is not giving up or acquiescing or taking all the responsibility. That was our stories. Acceptance is about stopping the resistance. The resistance is when we go in, is when we're not being real about what the issue is. We're not being in a place of, we're not going to be in a place of, what can I do? We're not going to be able to, in any way, give ourselves strength, because we're not going to allow ourselves to actually take the steps that need to be taken. Right? In the end of the day, what these all have in common, which I didn't even realize, is that they all give us strength by allowing us to say, what can I do? See, when we think of acceptance versus resistance, and I've seen this with clients, when a client is in a place of resisting an issue, even an issue with someone else. I'm thinking of a client who had an issue with a child and she was resisting the problem, like, it can't be this, it can't be that, just kind of blaming and not being able to be real with the issue. She couldn't do anything about it. It was like she didn't know how to fix it because she didn't know what the problem was and she didn't want to address what the problem was. I've seen this with women with their husbands, that there's an issue that their husband has, and they spend a lot of time upset about the issue. They spend a lot of time um, trying to blame the issue. They spend a lot of time getting upset with their husbands about it. Versus when we get to a place of acceptance of, okay, there's an issue, acceptance of, there's this challenge that needs to be dealt with. There's this thing that isn't working. There's this reality. I accept that this is the reality. Now that I accept the reality, now I can look at, what do I do about it? Again, not what's my fault, what's my where am I to blame? Um, who else is at fault? All of that puts us back in that totally out of control, feeling like totally depleted state. All of this allows us to get to a state of this is accepting what is and finding what I can do to move forward. That's what gives us strength. That's what allows us to be real about what's going on and deal with the issue instead of feeling like the issue is controlling us. We get to feel empowered in dealing with the issue. Is this resonating with all of you? I'd love to see in the comments. This is like it could be a very powerful, it could also be a very kind of triggering topic. I'd love to hear if this is resonating, if this is, any questions that you have, um, if this is something that that you feel you can relate to. Let's see. Yes, definitely resonating. Amazing. I'm so happy to hear. Yes, it is encouraging. Okay. Thank you for sharing your feedback. I've really been thinking about this topic a lot as like knowing that there is a lot of pain and knowing that there is a lot of tension and stress and issues that we have in our lives, and we can't necessarily we can't escape them. Right? I kept having this feeling like, I just need to get away. I need to relax. It's like, well, how am I going to do that? Like the issues don't go away just because I go sit on a beach, right? The issues don't change. Many weeks ago, I was on Lag BaOmer. I took my daughters to the beach and I was like, oh, this is going to be so relaxing. And we had sirens going off on the beach. Now, I don't want to give the impression that life here is like extremely, it's just constant. Thank God we are living life and it's beautiful, and I'm so blessed to be here, and I don't want to give that, a negative impression. It's just important for us to also like be real about the stress that we're dealing with does not necessarily go away just because we go to the beach, just because we go get a drink, just because we do some exercise. It doesn't make the stress go away. But all of these things, right? Doing things to take care of ourselves, checking in with our stories. What am I making this mean? Um, Getting to a place of acceptance are all going to allow us to ask that question of what can I do? And how can I do that in a way where I'm being my best self? I'm being the woman that I want to be in the reality of the situation that's going on. Whatever that stress is, whatever that issue is, that yes, may be outside of your control, and you can use these tools to have strength and clarity and dignity and feel empowered as you go through them, as you deal with it. And Bezrat Hashem, may we all overcome our challenges. May our stresses go away. May they all be dealt with. May we all feel the peace and serenity and that and 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 just like a peace in all of our lives, in the whole world, Bezrat Hashem, and we should all feel that. We should all have the strength and the ability to overcome our challenges. And like I said, when our challenges are outside of our control, it's not just having the strength and the ability to overcome them. It's, we hope that our challenges will will be taken away. We daven for that, and we can daven for that, and we can also make sure that we are giving ourselves the strength. We're giving ourselves doing the inner work. We're getting to a place of acceptance. We're noticing those emotions and stories that are holding us back, so that we can deal with them the best way that we can. And Bezrat Hashem, may we all have strength. May we all have the clarity. May we all have inner peace. May we all see peace all over the world. And may we only, this be the last year that we're, you know, that we are maybe, even this year, right? That we don't have to be in a state of exile and in a state of pain. And as we next week move more into the state of the 9 days, Bezrat Hashem, we should get to a state where we see clearly and where there is no more pain and there is no more struggle, and know that as when we are dealing with pain, that we are still that we can use these tools to be able to overcome and move forward. And let's keep davening and building together. Bezrat Hashem. I bless you all to have that strength, and I look forward. We'll have another session, Bezrat Hashem, next Monday on this topic. If you have further questions or challenges or angles that you'd like to look at, you're definitely welcome to let me know. And then we won't have the next week because it'll be Tisha B'av already here in Israel, and then after that we'll have to have a special Tu B'av and move into, please God, lighter and lighter feelings as then we get ready for Elul. So we're always on a process, and Bezrat Hashem, the process should always be taking us forward. And I am happy to be here on this journey with all of you. Until next week, may we all be blessed to live, love, and be loved with all our hearts. Goodbye for now.